Hey, this is Beacon's Closet. I'm Young, and today we are going to spin through the suits and jackets rack. I'll be giving you my first impressions about every item of clothing on this rack so you can better understand how to thrift for quality suits and jackets. Let's start with this guy here. Seems like a pretty cool, old school, double-breasted suit. That's made in Canada, as was I, so that's already a plus in my book. Late 80s, probably early 90s silhouette. It's got what's called a 6x1 button closure. That means there's 6 buttons on the front, but only one of them actually closes and works. Hey, Future Young here, jumping in with a little more context. The thing about a 6x1 button stance is that because there's only one button being buttoned at the very bottom of the jacket, it makes everything a little longer, a little more elegant. It makes everything feel a little classier and more formal. It's got this really nice houndstooth pattern. I like that a lot. Depending on the size of it, people will call it puppy tooth or whatever. And so maybe that's what this is. It's like a micro houndstooth. Interrupting here again just to say houndstooth actually originated in Scotland in the 1800s, and it was used mainly on hunting clothes. The lapels are a good size, and this style is honestly like really coming back, sort of a boxier, looser fit suit. It was the kind of suit you would want to like run miles away from screaming like 10 years ago. A really classic example of that 90s fit that people still love is Giorgio Armani suits from the early 90s. For $45, that's a pretty decent suit that you can rock on the weekends, you can wear out to a bar, and you'll look pretty cool. I'll give you a good idea of what used to be cool and is sort of on the way out, which are like super slim, skinny suits. It works on certain guys if you have the right build for it. This is definitely a suit that, is a little out of date and a little too slim and probably won't sort of stand the test of time. Just based on the style, like just how slim and skinny these lapels are and how tapered these pants are, these are gonna fit you like your skinny jeans from Warped Tour. It's 60% wool, 40% polyester, and fully lined polyester. So you can really feel the polyester quality of it. Polyester is a synthetic fabric that's usually made from gas, petroleum. It is a cheaper alternative to natural fibers like cottons or wools, and you can sort of feel it on a suit because it'll be a little too slick. It'll feel a little too much like your gym clothes. It'll give the suit sort of an unnatural sheen that you don't want, that like really looks like a cheap suit. I would probably avoid a suit like this right now. This is a jacket I would probably only recommend picking up if you're going to a costume party, maybe. It is that sort of polyester fabric from the 70s. It's got these crazy wide lapels, and this plaid, I love a plaid blazer on the right day, but this one is like probably not that. It's also missing a button, which is not great. It just doesn't really scream professional or cool in any real way. It's a little more right for Halloween, perhaps. Okay, we got this. This is sort of a thing that you're gonna find on racks like this and in stores like this a lot that kind of bugs me, which is where this is very clearly a suit jacket. The matching pants aren't here, and maybe that's because the person who donated this didn't provide the pants. Maybe the pants are on another rack over there somewhere, I'm not really sure. But you can sort of tell that this isn't a sport coat or a blazer. Generally speaking, sport coats and blazers are gonna be made of, slightly different material. You can sort of tell just from the wool and the pinstripe of it all, like this is definitely cut and meant to be a suit jacket. Oftentimes like sort of fall winter sport coats are gonna be a little bit thicker, like the one that I'm wearing, that's a little tweedier. A blazer will like generally have like gold or brass buttons. And then this is just sort of, quite clearly like meant to have matching pants, and it doesn't. That's just a thing to avoid altogether because there's no way you're really gonna wear this with jeans or with trousers or anything and it'll look quite right. We talked a little crap about this plaid jacket, but this plaid suit, on the other hand, is very sick to me. This is kitschy and retro in a good way to me. It has a lot to do with this fabric, which is a beautiful wool. The great thing about wool is that it's a natural fiber. Wool lasts so long because its fibers are very resilient. You can wear it over and over again, and it'll take a really long time for it to actually break down the way that something a little bit lighter like a cotton or polyester might. This is a really cool detail too. It was made expressly for Isaac Baker & Son in Erie, Pennsylvania. Back in the day, like there were all these really cool little stores that would have like suiting programs and And this just reads to me like, in the best way possible, like, you know, like a 70s Anchorman. Big bold lapels, big bold plaid, these kind of wide-legged, almost bell-bottomy trousers. I wouldn't be surprised to see this, you know, like on a Gucci runway. Here we have a suede jacket of sorts, which is kind of cool. It's kind of giving me sort of like 80s lounge singer vibes. It is from a brand from Italy that I've never heard of called La Mata. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. It is 100% leather, and it was made in Italy. This is a pretty cool jacket for 30 bucks. It says as is, which leads me to believe that there's probably some damage somewhere that I'm not seeing. I guess there's some scuffs back here, but suede can be notoriously difficult to clean and care for. Suede is a type of leather that is made with the underside of the animal skin, which is why it's so much softer and nappier and fuzzier. That fuzziness is beautiful, but it can also lend itself to a whole host of problems if you wear it out in the snow or the rain. It's just really not going to hold up all that well to the elements. You know, if you're getting something for 30 bucks and it's in pretty good shape, you can kind of like wear it into the ground and not feel too guilty about that, which is cool. This is, you know, not a bad looking Hugo Boss made in USA, sort of tweedy sport coat. This is also like feels kind of late 90s, maybe early 2000s to me in some ways, just based on the lapel width and this fabric, which like sort of looks like something, you know, my dad would have worn to work in like 1998. The fabric here is 100% virgin wool. It's not bad. I think this is like kind of neither here nor there in terms of the things we've seen on the rack so far, but perfectly decent option. Now for something completely different. We got a full-on jumpsuit here, just a cheaper one that is made to be worn to work and then disposed of, and not really something that I would recommend like putting into your personal style. Here we've got another suit jacket in need of pants. It says it was made in Italy. It's a little bit rough around the edges. It looks like it was well worn, and you know, people have been stuffing stuff in the pocket there. You start to see on suits as they get worn, little threads coming off here and there. Like the edges of your cuffs are going to get kind of dirty and worn out. The lining will start to break, especially sometimes like under the underarm, I find. And then anything you're using, like a pocket, is probably going to get, you know, misshapen or stretched out over time. Kind of a cool pattern. Unfortunately, it doesn't have pants. One more. Suit jacket, no pants. Again, slightly outdated, slimmer lapel that we're less of a fan of these days. It's cost more than that suede jacket, and I would definitely get that suede jacket. Cool. This is a Christian Dior blazer, 60 bucks. Dior, obviously, a very famous name in fashion circles. You know, it's gone through different periods. You'll find a lot of Dior stuff for cheaper than you might expect, because those things, you know, weren't necessarily made up to the same standard that the house is known for and known for again now. A little extra context here. In the 80s and 90s, Dior actually licensed its name out to a bunch of other companies who made their menswear and put the Dior name on it. That doesn't mean that this is bad clothing necessarily. It's just probably not up to the standard you might think of when you think of Dior, which is once again today one of the great and extremely cool Parisian fashion houses. Cool, kind of flaxy color with a lot of texture to it, you know. Nice classic cut, great lapels. This is a cool jacket for 60 bucks. Ultimately, it's like a pretty nice like spring, summer weight blazer. This is like a looser, lighter weight, airier material. It's definitely more breathable. It is lined, but you know, sometimes you'll see like spring summer jackets are only half lined or no lining at all. This is a great option if you're going to a wedding in the springtime. All right, this is kind of a nice little gem here. This is like a really cool camel sport coat from Nordstrom back in the day with the old Nordstrom house label, which is a cool kind of retro detail. The Nordstrom Classics for Men line, kind of cool. I'm wondering if this is old enough that it would be real camel hair or if it's wool. It is, it's 100% camel's hair. So camel hair really is made from the hair of a camel, which is a very soft and luxurious fabric. And it's often collected not by shearing a camel, but by simply picking up and collecting the hair that's left behind after the camel's annual shedding season. This is really gorgeous. Like, this is the real deal. Has that great tan color, You don't often see blazers or sport coats this color. This would look good over just like a white shirt and black or navy knit tie. This is a really good versatile option for every day. This is tough. There's a lot wrong here. These lapels are way too skinny. This fabric just like looks like, I don't know, like if you went to someone's bachelor pad and this would probably be their sheets, you know, when you're just like, dude, just like get like white linen, it's gonna be fine. The buttons here are way too close together. They're all kind of squinched up in a way that's gonna like not make your midsection look very flattering. You really don't want the buttons to be all that close together because it's gonna leave a lot of fabric on either side that will make you look wider. It's got this like kind of reflective paisley, which like, you know, just screams guy on his 4th bachelor party in Vegas kind of thing. I guess this was custom tailored for somebody by Raymond Custom Tailoring. Boy, they could have just gotten something off the rack that would be a little bit nicer. So that's a tough beat. Here is a tuxedo jacket that I'm not really a fan of. It's got this bird's eye pattern with the satin lapels. This isn't a particularly nice bird's eye, but there are beautiful bird's eye suits out there. Generally speaking, tuxedo jackets, like, you know, they're a little fancier, and so they're the ones that are gonna have these contrast satin lapels and oftentimes like silk or satin covered buttons. That doesn't mean that all tux jackets have those necessarily, but that is a hallmark of black tie. Okay, we're still running with a lot of these kind of slightly, I think there's a reason that a lot of these are on this rack, that people maybe toss these out. This is again, like a slightly outdated jacket. I think, again, maybe was intended to be part of a suit and the pants are gone. Perfectly forgettable, so let's keep moving. This is, again, half of a suit that's missing. This one's from Suit Supply. Slightly better lapels. They're slightly wider here, but without the pants, it's kind of a losing proposition. This is a pretty well-worn parka by the brand TNA, which I think is a spin-off of Aritzia. A lot of the ladies in my life have, growing up in Toronto, had jackets like this. I think this one is probably cut for women. When I'm looking for a new parka, I want it to be warm and really handsome, and this parka is not hitting in either category. Looks a little too skimpy to really protect you from the elements. You also want something that's gonna look good with a lot of your clothes, and this sort of muddy color is really just not hitting for me. You can do better than this in terms of a parka if it's that cold out, you know? Okay, what do we got here? So this is a spin by Andrew Mark on a duffel coat. You know, the kind of coat that Paddington Bear wears, for instance. This is not a particularly cool one, in my opinion. They just are doing too much. You know, like the duffel coat is a really classic British style. It emerged in the British Navy, and generations of like boarding school kids wore them. And it's cool, it's preppy, it's got like a lot of history to it. If you want the real deal in terms of duffel coats, definitely go for Gloverall. They sort of originated the style and still do it the best. And this one is just doing way too much. They added these zippers and all these fake leather things that look really shiny and plasticky, and there's an extra zip collar here for some reason, and the hood zips off. Like, it's just wrong. This is a leather puffer from Zara, so you kind of already know the deal here. It's like definitely not real leather. It definitely feels like vinyl or plasticky. I don't even think it'll be particularly that warm. It's like padded, but who knows with what? Probably a good one to skip. This is not the leather jacket you wanna be wearing if you're gonna look cool in a leather jacket. On the other hand, I would absolutely buy this. This is sick. This is a great old LL Bean coat. It's like sort of a field jacket, trail jacket style. This is the kind of thing that my dad, would have worn in the 90s. That's sort of the style I'm always looking to replicate. LL Bean, great old school American brand, makes really quality stuff. I would guess it's from the late 80s, early 90s, probably somewhere in that region, maybe mid 90s. But this is made of 100% nylon, so it's gonna be waterproof. It's gonna be good in the rain, good for a hike, good for dropping the kids off at soccer practice, whatever the case might be. It's got this cool sort of cinched waist, which, you know, you don't really see that much anymore. It's got a nice, like, sort of 3/4 length. Really cool jacket, great color. Okay, this leather jacket, oh, it's got a button sort of falling off. You might think that I'm gonna sort of trash this jacket and say that it is also not the kind of leather jacket you want, but honestly, like, this sort of leather jacket is really cool again, possibly because everybody watched The Sopranos during the pandemic. These sort of big, loose leather coats are just kind of rad again if you can pull them off. It does take a specific kind of person and a specific kind of look to make this look cool and not frumpy, but it's definitely possible. And it's like, this is big and weighty, and it says it's 100% leather. So, you know, an interesting thing about that is that if you see it say 100% leather or genuine leather, that does mean, yes, that it's leather, but it doesn't always mean it's necessarily the best quality leather. For 45 bucks, if you're the right person for this and you can pull it off and make it work, like, this is a cool leather coat. Okay. Obviously, I love a tweed jacket, and this one is very cool based on the cut of it. It's probably from the 50s or the 60s. Got these sort of slimmer, kind of Mad Men-ish lapels. And these are slim lapels, I think, in a good way, personally, because it sort of speaks to that era, and the cut is a little bit boxier. You heard me kind of bashing slimmer lapels earlier. These lapels are way too skinny, outdated slimmer lapel, perfectly forgettable. I think it was like those specific slimmer lapels, which feel very like 2014, 2015 to me, and this one feels more natural. It fits the garment and kind of makes sense with the overall cut of this jacket. It's genuine Harris tweed, and Harris tweed is like the best tweed in the world. It's like well known. It's made on the Isle of Harris in Scotland, and real Harris tweed will have like a badge like this, essentially, that sort of shows you that it was made by the independent Harris tweed producers. That's pretty cool. And this is a gorgeous blue tweed, which is quite rare. You don't often see tweeds this color, and it's got, similar to mine, it's got a herringbone pattern to it. It's that sort of zigzaggy pattern that you see right here in the wool. Herringbone is another extremely classic pattern, not just in menswear, but in the world. It actually originated way back in the Roman Empire, where it was used in buildings and in roadways. That's how they laid down the brick. Tweed is great because it's sturdy, you know? It's just got this like kind of great rough hone quality to it. It can sort of stand up to anything. It'll, you know, serve you well as like an outer layer on a crisp fall day. It's kind of bulletproof, and you know, this one obviously has stood the test of time. Another kind of leather coat, but unlike the other boxy leather jacket we saw before, I'm not really a fan of this one. I'm not convinced that this is real leather. It does feel very kind of plasticky to me. It's got this kind of weird crunch that I don't like. Okay, so here we go. It says genuine leather. If you see genuine leather on a tag, it often indicates that it's a lower quality leather that's undergone a lot more processing. It's made up of, you know, different composites of sort of cheap leathers. You really want to make sure that your leather is full grain, and generally if it says, you know, the kind of hide that it is, if it's calf skin, for instance, that's like normally a good sign. It means that it's made from a high quality, beautiful leather that will age really nicely over time, and this is not that, unfortunately. Okay, this is a overshirt of sorts. This is the kind of tweed that you would normally see on like a Chanel pantsuit, perhaps, or skirt suit. This is made of 100% polyester. It's weird because it's cut like a kind of a lumberjacky plaid shirt, but then this is something that Cher from Clueless would wear, like the fabric. So I don't really know what it's going for, and probably good to skip this one too. Another kind of longer leather coat. This is fine. Yeah, this is pretty cool. It's like old Kenneth Cole. I think this is probably cut for more feminine bodies as well, definitely based on the floral lining, but nice leather. It's nice and soft. If it fits your body, if you're slim enough to pull it off, I think it's a perfectly decent longer leather coat. So we've got this really cool Carl Connie jacket. Carl Connie was sort of early streetwear purveyor in the 90s, worn by a lot of rappers. You know, it's got a chore coat kind of cut to it with these big patch pockets on the fronts. So chore coats are like a workwear style. They're generally cut pretty wide and have these big pockets because they're meant to be worked in for people who do manual labor. And so to flip one in leather is a pretty cool move. It's a very wearable style. Okay, next up, Kenneth Cole Reaction Trench. Trench coats are always cool. This one, not so much, in my opinion. Ideally, you want a trench coat with some real length. You know, you want it to go well past your knees, and this one's gonna kind of hit mid-thigh, and it's lined, which is like maybe nice on a cold, rainy day, but ideally you want a looser cut trench that can fit comfortably over a suit or over a big sweater or whatever you're wearing underneath. And I'm not totally sure that that's actually going to be the case here because it's cut so slim. Here we have a massively cut leather blazer. Leather blazers are sick. Anthony Bourdain used to wear them all the time and looked really cool in them every single time. This one, I'm a little torn about. I mean, it's so big that I'm having a hard time picturing, like maybe if you're like 6'6" and this fits you properly, maybe it'll look cool. Or if you're like very slender and small, like, and it's super oversized, that might be kind of fun, like in a Talking Heads kind of way, but I don't know. It's probably not right for most people. This is another leather coat. It's very big. It's padded, it's super heavy, it looks battered to hell, which, like, you know, is either a plus or a minus in your book, like depending on your style. And it does feel, you know, a little bit cheaper leather. Again, it's that genuine leather that we've told you to look out for, so probably not the best leather jacket for the money. All right, we got one more leather number here. This is a double XL. From Dockers. It's what they call a cafe racer style with this like kind of band collar here. You know, I'm no motorcycle expert, but it is a style of both bike and jacket. Not the world's nicest leather jacket, not the world's worst. Like I think, yeah, again, on the right person, this could look perfectly fine and cool. All right, this is a Dolce & Gabbana summer blazer. You know, Dolce & Gabbana, very fancy label, so that's like kind of maybe a good value for 55 bucks. It says as is, which makes me think that there's probably some damage or stains or something happening here that I'm not quite seeing right away, but I feel like it's maybe slightly purposely rumpled. Like you could definitely steam all of this out, but you know, the thing with cotton jackets, like this is like a light cotton summery jacket. When you're wearing linen or cotton or any of these lighter summer fabrics, wrinkles are gonna happen and either you own them or you don't, you know? There's a lot to like about this jacket from my perspective. First of all, the label here, it says the territory ahead with this very 90s graphic. It looks like the kind of thing you would get on a like workbook in math class, or like it's a cult, I have no idea, but I'm intrigued. And then that kind of just leads into the rest of this jacket, which sort of reads something Ethan Hawke would have worn in like Before Sunrise. It's just kind of like a little loose and bohemian, and it's 52% linen and 48% silk. Like I was saying, so linen jackets, like they tend to wrinkle, but you know, that rumpled quality is part of the appeal. This is more of a 90s cut, right? Like if you watch, you know, TV shows from that era, this is the kind of jacket that guys were wearing back then. They liked things a little looser. It's got these casual patch pockets. This is not like a formal dressy blazer. This is like the kind of thing you throw on over a t-shirt and some Levi's and kind of hit the road in. Great thing to wear if you are riding the rails in Europe. All right, this is inching closer to a great trench. It's not perfect, but it's cooler than the last one. It's from a brand called the Glen Eagles. It's got this like sort of knockoff Burberry lining on here. Burberry purports to have invented the trench coat, so that's why a lot of brands try to nod towards that heritage. Trench coats originated in World War I, and they were designed to be long and durable to keep soldiers warm and dry throughout trench warfare. There are two main British brands who claim to have invented the trench coat, Burberry and Aquascutum. Both of them are pretty great in my opinion. It's got a really classic trench construction in terms of the double-breasted cut, the belt back here that you can either, you know, belt up or tie up in the front or tie up in the back, depending on how you want to wear it. It's got these flat pockets, which are good for keeping things dry in your pockets during the rain. And again, unlike the last one, it isn't overly lined. So, you know, this is going to sit more naturally over whatever you're wearing underneath and not feel too tight or constricting when you're wearing like a suit or a big sweater underneath. For 30 bucks, that's like pretty good value. Okay, This is a pretty cool retro leather jacket. It's from Gino Leathers, and that already like sort of like, you know, calls to mind like all sorts of crazy disco-y visions in my brain. And it has this like fur lining that you can unzip and take out depending on how hot or cold it is, and it's got these great slanted pockets and this cool contrast lining. And even though, yeah, probably isn't the nicest leather in the world, the overall look and aesthetic and style of it is so distinctive and so cool. Like, you know, this is like a jacket that like requires the owner to like own a Camaro and drive it as fast as possible. So pretty sick, honestly. Okay, we have another duffel coat here. This one is not as offensive to me as the last one, but also not perfect and not something I'd necessarily recommend. But it's all right. This is fine. You can kind of feel this flannel isn't the nicest. It's like definitely kind of nappy and way too many pockets on the front here. This is an okay duffel coat. Here's our last coat on the rack. This is a sort of military style parka from All Saints, a British brand. It's like aiming for the kind of cool military fishtail parka that that like Liam Gallagher would wear on stage, and it's unfortunately landing closer to the sort of thing that like Jared Leto would wear on stage with 30 Seconds to Mars. So there's like a Velcro patch here. There's like kind of a faux, probably sheepskinny lining in here that'll keep you warm that I think, again, yeah, you can button out. Yeah, I don't know. Something about this is just not quite hitting for me. I think maybe it's like the way it's been sort of artificially distressed. I think it's been washed and treated in a way that the whole thing is meant to look distressed. Whereas, like, if you were to get a cool old wax cotton jacket, you can tell that something's been worn by a real person over time because it's only worn in certain areas. Whatever wear and tear is on it, like, looks a little more natural and less, like, you know, uniform. If I were to take one thing home with me today, I would actually probably pick this suit. You know, of course, it'd have to be in an ideal world where this suit fit me. I think it's definitely way too small for me, but it's the kind of thing that I go vintage shopping and thrifting to look for. It's like big, crazy swings, you know, that maybe cost a little less, so I feel a little more confident in trying to take that risk. And, you know, a great retro suit like this with the big, bold lapels and the big, bold plaid is definitely a risk worth taking.